Welcome again. During this time of being at home, I found myself really wanting to pick up something new to teach me and to hopefully encourage me, help me to learn more about what does it mean to be a follower of Jesus. And I have great respect for a man named Daryl Johnson who wrote this book, Discipleship on the Edge. Daryl was once the pastor of the church that I now pastor, Fremont Presbyterian here in Sacramento. And Daryl has always been a teacher to me through his books, his sermons, his writings. And so I picked this up because I know that I'm passionate about myself being a disciple, leading others to follow Jesus more closely. And this book was written in particular to talk about how do we follow Jesus? What does discipleship look like at a time when things seem to be on an edge? And Daryl writes about that so beautifully in this book. It's also a book that studies the book of Revelation, the last book of the Bible. And one of the things that I found in the opening chapters of this book is Daryl talks about how the book of Revelation is really a revealing and unveiling of the vision of Jesus as the conquering and risen King. And Daryl writes really wonderfully about how the book of Revelation has often been misunderstood or just used to talk about the end times. And I'm not going to talk about that today, but instead talk about how this was meant to be a book written at a time in the history of the early church to encourage people in a time of crisis. And so it's appropriate that we can look at this book and see what it has to say to us about how to follow Jesus in a time like this. Reading about the Apostle John, one of Jesus's closest followers, the one who wrote this book, reading how the Apostle John gained a vision of Jesus reminded me of another teacher that has had an impact on me. And if you've heard me preach before at Fremont, you have probably heard me mention Dallas Willard, a professor of philosophy at the University of Southern California and a strong believer in Jesus. Dallas writes in a book called The Renovation of the Heart, and the 5th chapter, he writes about how change, any kind of change, can happen. And he talks about how we must first have a vision of what we want to change into, what change will look like in our lives. We must have a renewed vision. Secondly, we need to talk about an intention, a decision to actually follow through to accomplish that vision. And finally, we need the means to accomplish that. We're going to unpack that a little bit more in the coming days, this idea of vision, intention, and means. We're going to begin with vision, and I want to just simply leave you today with this question. When you think about the person of Jesus, what do you see? How do you see him? We're going to look at some of that in the coming days, and I pray that as you leave this time of watching this, that you might gain a renewed vision of Jesus, the one who once was dead and is now alive forever and ever. Amen.